Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. We're still on the road. We got stuck in all that craziness with the cancellation of flights and things, and so we're from a hotel in Southwest. So anyway, let's go ahead and do questions. You can unmute yourself, type in anything goes. Yourself, clients, friends, whatever you're trying to do. Go ahead and fire away.
And go ahead, Ralph, then Chris.
Hey, Greg, how you doing
Hey,
tonight?
did you have a good Christmas?
I had a great Christmas,
Good.
and so yeah, things are good. I got a chance to go through my notes from the Q&A class the other weekend.
Oh, good.
Few questions here. Parsley soap.
Yes.
Does that have the same effect as a salt bath or a salt scrub?
The salt scrub is a little bit more etherically cleansing and a little
Okay.
bit more stimulating to the skin. You know how like you would do dry brushing
Yeah.
to stimulate lymphatic movement,
Mhm.
but the soap itself, either the bar or the black soap with the parsley in it, it has the impact of the parsley, but not quite the etheric cleansing of the salt scrub itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The parsley part is the same. The etheric part is not the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Question on cedar.
Mhm.
Cedar wood oil versus Atlas cedar.
Yeah. Same thing. Same thing, just different location.
Okay.
So different cedars sometimes get called by different names, but all the cedars are from the wood. Sometimes they do the wood, the twigs and the leaves a little bit. I mean, the variation would be thuja, which is not necessarily cedar. Sometimes it's affiliated with it, but that's from actually the leaves. And every once in a while, there's a cedar leaf. But all the different cedars, they have very similar properties. The more like fancy cedars, like the Taiwanese cedar and the Himalayan cedar, a little bit more of the mixing effect of the hardened crown. And I would say the Taiwanese cedar even kind of activates the hardened crown a bit more. But other than that, for the therapeutic benefits, they all kind of do the same thing. And if you're shooting for therapeutic benefits for like a Venus tonic and things of that nature, I would say that I'd go like just cedar wood, cedar out, Atlas cedar, blood cedar, whatever one is your. I wouldn't get the fancy stuff for that.
Okay.
The even the Himalayan is not too expensive, but the Taiwanese cedar is a little bit pricey.
Mm-hmm.
If for cedar, like it's a
Yeah.
little pricey. And so I wouldn't use that it does all those things, but it's not cost effective where you can just get some good old fashioned cedar and, call it good.
Okay.
And so Atlas cedar is, like back in the Bible and the Old Testament, when they talked about the cedars of Lebanon, the closest thing that there is in essential oils to the cedars of Lebanon is Atlas cedar.
Okay.
So that's kind of the standard a lot of times when you talk about cedar, but there's a bunch. I mean, I think I have like 7 or 8 of them, and there's probably 3 or 4 more that I don't even carry.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
And antiviral. Now you had talked about using Monarda, and then you said you had immune support, which was
immune support is antiviral.
Yeah.
Very antiviral. Like when I made that was for the antiviral effect, definitely strengthening the immune system. But so Monarda is the strongest oil by itself for antiviral, with a close second being Melissa.
Okay.
And then the various forms of like thyme and like savory and things like that. And when the immune support, it does have Monarda in it, and it does have a bunch of different kinds of thyme in it, as well as some other things. But it was made to be like a cost-effective antiviral agent. Strengthening the immune system, where if you're really pushing hard, before the pandemic, I really didn't talk about Monarda a whole lot. or Melissa as an antiviral just because the cost,
Yeah.
the times are so much more cost effective and pretty effective, but
Mhm.
they don't, I mean, they're super antiviral, but they don't quite have the antiviral capacity that Monarda does. And then,
Yeah.
so even if you're trying to stay on a budget, Ravensara, Eucalyptus radiata, and bay laurel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because yeah, that's the thing. I was looking at my notes and I was wondering, in the upcoming period, because I am on a budget, if I got some immune support, I have some bay laurel.
Yeah. Like between all that, you should be pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does cinnamon, because it's such an alpha oil, conflict with frankincense? And I'm looking at cinnamon for immune
No.
kickstarts and frankincense for the will.
Yeah. Frankincense for the will. Yeah. Like, are you going to mix them together or?
No, just take
Okay.
take them individually.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I wanted to make sure that, if I take cinnamon, it's not going to kill the frankincense or
No.
something.
No, it shouldn't.
Okay.
Cinnamon is actually is as much as we talk about it being like so dominant in everything, it's very activating to the heart, it's very activating to the crown.
Mhm.
I don't know, like if they would blend well just by themselves together, like if you had other things mixed in with it,
Mhm.
it could potentially be fine. Some of the old anointing oils have both of those in it, but they have several other things.
Right.
Just those two alone, they should be fine independently. And another one for the will that is a little bit of a sleeper you'd never think of is ylang ylang. Like
Okay.
the frankincense and ylang ylang together.
Mhm.
Master Choi used to make a blend that was frankincense, ylang ylang, and there was one other thing in it that was for the will. And so I think it was never something that he gave to the public, but he would give a few of us from time to time. And it was mostly frankincense and ylang ylang, and it had one other little tiny thing in it. But he just had like a handwritten note on it that said willpower.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Geranium. What's
Mhm.
its big? What's it good for?
Geranium is a good thing where like you can use it for depression, you can use it for kind of increasing vitality a little bit. It can have some immune functions, antiviral properties, antibacterial properties.
Mhm.
It actually can be used sometimes in a respiratory blend. It wouldn't stand on its own, but
Yeah.
a lot of times something like geranium even can get used to like enhance or augment like other flowers, like to
Uh-huh.
stretch them out. Like if you
Yeah.
put a little bit of rose in with geranium, you kind of get the benefits of the rose, because like how we talk about cinnamon being so like dominant,
Yeah.
geranium is almost the complete opposite. It is so passive that it just almost takes on the properties of anything you blend it with.
Okay.
And so when you mix it with like different flowers or something like that, it will start to kind of take on the quality or the property of the flower.
Okay.
And so it doesn't always blend with everything, but it blends with a lot, especially like more floral notes or respiratory oriented oils. Sometimes people will put geranium in a respiratory blend to kind of take the harsh edges off of like a eucalyptus or something like that, or a peppermint. But
Yeah.
like my thought with all that is always you're putting those things in there because you want like a bigger bang for the respiratory tract, so you don't want
Right.
to necessarily soften that component. And so I've never really put it in respiratory blends over the last like 10-15 years. In the early days I tried just because it's a bit of a thing,
Mhm.
but I always liked it better without.
Yeah.
And so unless you're just doing maintenance, but like if you're really trying to treat something pretty hard respiratory wise. Geranium usually doesn't make the list for me, but treating like if a person's like burned out or they're a little bit depressed, like deep depression, I wouldn't necessarily use geranium for that, but like you're just feeling like some mild depression, mild fatigue,
Yeah.
things of that nature. Yeah, it can be very good for that.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have other notes. Let me see if I have something else in there.
And I'm enjoying on the weekly newsletters you're sending out where you go through an oil every week and really give
Yeah,
some
I thought that
detail
would
on it.
be,
That's for the engineer in me. I love that.
yeah. And, the idea is to get all that out there so it's easier for you guys to figure out what to use. And,
Yeah.
yeah, hold on. Let me see if I can find it somewhere else. Yeah, it can be used for cellulitis, edema, poor circulation. One thing, it's good for the adrenals. Like
Okay.
that's the fatigue part. So you could say stress related issues, things like that. But
Mhm.
again, I'd use other things before I'd use that. The thing with geranium is, there's some fancy geraniums like the Egyptian geranium that we have, and there's a geranium Bourbon. Looks like bourbon, but they
Yeah.
say it differently. Those are kind of fancy. Those are a little bit more like a kind of heady, like almost like a perfume quality geranium that could really stand on its own. But most times you are blending geranium, so it's a good like kind of like filler oil, like that, or you just use it for like kind of like a bit of an uplifting effect on the emotional body. Yeah, like mild depression, uplifting, um, putting somebody in like a sense of like well-being, that kind of idea, like
Yeah.
activation of the heart.
Mhm.
And so, yeah.
Okay. For black spruce, I have notes that it fortifies and calms nerves. Is there anything else that it's
Yeah,
really?
black spruce is very good for the kidneys, but not necessarily as a diuretic, just to like fortify the kidneys. But it's very good for adrenal function. It's
Yeah.
very good for pituitary function. It does help to produce a little cortisone in the body, so it could even be used to fortify the body in times of like arthritic conditions or achy pain. Like
Yeah.
sharp pain, probably not going to do a whole lot, but the achiness and things like that, they're reducing some of the inflammation by increasing cortisone levels, and so your body's naturally producing it. It's not that it contains cortisone,
Yeah.
and so good for that. Good for upper faculties, like supporting the nervous system, the brain. Can be used for meditation, even like for respiratory related issues. I mean, you could throw it in the mix. For deepening the breath, I like Sitka a little bit better. Sitka is a kind of spruce that's real specific, but it's very close to black spruce, but also different, if that makes sense. And so I tend to go Sitka a little bit more. It has a little bit more of a deepening of the breath, but you could say like I find it to be like kind of fortifying to what we call emotions. In alchemy, you would refer to that as spirit. And the thing with spirit, or I should say the approach with alchemy towards some of those things with like psychological healing is a little bit different than the way we think of psychology, in modern times. They look at it from how these things interact with each other and the things that get produced. And
Mhm.
so you're trying to, like, almost esoterically, this is going to sound really super weird, but almost esoterically, you could say like what we call the emotions or the emotional body esoterically almost like doesn't exist. Like it's a thing that is the culmination of the interaction between the mind and the body.
Mhm.
And really, like what we would call emotions is how well or not well we've tempered the physical form.
Mhm.
So if the physical form is in a really agitated state, it produces very agitated emotions.
Yeah.
If the physical body has been very tempered and you've regulated like responses and instinctual, drives and things like this, it actually produces like what we would call like higher emotions. And so spirit is even like a step past higher emotions.
Okay.
And so you could almost say that it's like something is coming in or flowing through you, like there's a stream that's coming through you, and it's connected to divine intelligence. It's connected to the like the light or the energy that flows through nature. And so in a way, it is a deeper form of spiritual development.
Mhm.
Like if you look at it from an alchemical point of view, it's the same. Like even how in one of the degree lessons for Astara, Erlene Cheney talks about it, in some of the other esoteric writings as well. But
Yeah.
basically, there's like kind of three levels of people. Right, like there's the person who is just driven by experience, right? They just want to
Mhm.
have experiences. And so you could almost say that that's probably most likely a young soul. Like,
Mhm.
they're in the body, they're doing things, they're having experiences, but that's really their only drive.
Right.
Then in alchemy, you would say the soul aspect is somebody trying to connect to the soul, and the manifestation of that would also be the mastery of the thing, the drive to master things that you do. Like say you're at work, you're trying to be the best that you can at work, or you're trying to be the best at whatever it is. You're trying to master yourself, you're mastering this science or art, and
Mhm.
you're really refining your mental body. So at this point, like facts and details play a big role in the development of like processing information, and
Mhm.
even how we talk about like the everyday mind and the intuitive mind. Even the play of that is something. But at some point, if you think about like what is like when somebody becomes a bit more awakened, because there's levels or degrees of like awakening that happens,
Yeah.
and one of it is just simply the more intuitive side of your brain just starts waking up. Like you start
Mhm.
processing more information through that side than your normal everyday mind. And so on a level, that is a kind of awakening, right?
Yeah.
And then an even deeper level of awakening is then going to this aspect of spirit. And so if you look at it from a Kabbalistic point of view, the emotional body, or what we are calling the emotional body, is from the heart to the sex chakra. Like it
Mhm.
is not just the heart and the solar plexus, but it's the heart, the solar plexus, the navel, the spleen, the Mingmen, and the sex chakra, right?
Okay.
Because it's tied to a lot of your physiology,
Yep.
right? And so as this becomes more refined, a person, you start having like, you move from lower emotions to like higher emotions. You start thinking of other people before you're thinking of yourself, where lower emotions are very self-centered or self-oriented, where higher emotions of the heart start to be more about others, right? And
Yep.
then at some point that starts to move up and starts to activate the crown and then activate the mental permanent seed, which is what we would call the blue pearl, or how we process information from the higher soul.
Right.
So part of how we spiritually grow and develop is tied to how well we refine that emotional component so that it moves up to the crown and then activates those centers. But then as that develops, you start changing how the mind processes information, and then eventually that has a greater activating effect on the heart, and then that is when the spirit component comes in. And so like in Buddhism, they have the auspicious symbols, the 8 symbols that are associated with Buddhist teachings or Buddhist practices. And
Right.
each one of them are symbolized of like a thing that you're to like kind of cultivate and everything. And one of them that doesn't get talked about very much is the parasol. Like it's basically like an umbrella that protects you from the sun, right?
Right.
And so this is considered an auspicious symbol in Buddhism. And so if you think like, why is an umbrella an auspicious symbol? But it is tied to the alchemy of, or the practice of, protecting the emotional body or the spirit from the intellect.
Mhm.
And so we have this in modern times, like a lot of times when we refer to psychosomatic issues, right?
Mhm.
Which I think is vastly misunderstood, right? It's
Yeah.
vastly misunderstood. And so like I don't like to use that term because people kind of go to something in their head because of what people have written about that over the years, and a lot of it's not accurate. And so it's just whatever your awareness is on, like this is basically what happens. Whatever your awareness is on, like when you're thinking something, like the forehead physicalizes that into the form, into the body, into the emotions, things like that. But how it does it,
Mhm.
like it just doesn't like blast it through like the arms and the legs and the liver. What it does is it perceives something, and then it starts to physicalize it just simply by moving it down to the ajna. And
Mhm.
then the ajna is the master chakra that synchronizes all the other centers. And so whatever you're perceiving, the forehead moves it down to the ajna, and then it manifests in the body. And so like even when you're trying to unwind that, like you could say on one level, the psychosomatic issue is the forehead, but actually it's giving instruction to the ajna, or giving the information or the data that then gets physicalized in the body, because your mind, like your body has a big influence on your energy centers, and your mind has a big impact on your energy centers. It's not an either or thing. Like psychosomatic implies that just anything you think physicalizes, so any health issue you have is psychosomatic or because of the mind, when a lot of times for most people, the body is affecting the mind that then affects the body, right?
Right.
And so it takes somebody to be relatively developed to like not be impacted by the body, and the mind has to be so developed that it can override the body. And it can be done, but it's not common. Like
Yeah.
it's not common at all. And so when you're going through and you're unwinding some of these things, this is something that we do in a lot of the classes, is we're not just unwinding the things that are in the energy center or the physiology, but we're trying to change the kind of information that is going from the forehead to the ajna that then is out to the centers. And so, we keep, at first you have to just kind of unwind things, and then you start going down the rabbit hole, so to speak. And so, over the last couple months, we definitely have been going down the rabbit hole, and I'm not slowing down come January or February. We're going down the rabbit hole way, way more. Like there's definitely some alchemical, it's not necessarily alchemy, but it's like the old school way of treating physical and psychological issues that's very different, even how we approach them in normal even energy practices. It's alluded to, but it's not always addressed. And so even in the Astara writings, which was a big foundation for pranic healing, I mean, they're like a lot of pranic healing was drawn from Astara. And even in that, it's like alluded to, but it's not really like, this is the technique. I mean, that was one of the great things that Master Choa did, is he took a lot of the things from various traditions, including Astara, and then made it this like step-by-step practice. But a lot of times, the reason why he wanted us to study things like Astara and some of the theosophical writings is there's even more to what's being taught. It's hard to teach that to a large group. Like you almost have to do that by the individual, and that usually means book study.
Okay. All right. Last one.
That was probably way more information than you wanted, by the way.
I love it when you take off.
I've been on the road and thinking and
going,
haven't been talking. So
can I keep up with him?
Yeah.
I'm very glad Sam puts the recordings out so I can go out and flesh out my notes.
Yeah.
Okay. Eucalyptus globulus and Eucalyptus ironbark. Why would I use ironbark over globulus?
So globulus has a cleansing effect on the energy body, for one. It has a cleansing effect on the mental body as well. It clears out emotions a bit, but more in the mental body. Like it's very good for like throat oriented issues. It's antiviral, very good for respiratory related issues. Actually can even be used for pain syndromes. It's not the greatest, but like the various eucalyptuses, traditionally have been used for pain related issues. And so they all have like different chemotypes, or they're slightly different, but botanical types. And so like, we go pretty deep on the different eucalyptuses. I mean, I think I have like about 15. There's even several that I don't even have on the site. They're just
there's
like
a bunch
funky.
there, and that's why I'm asking, why would I want ironbark as opposed to globulus?
Globulus is more like what you would think eucalyptus about, very good etheric cleanser, very good for immune related issues, very good for respiratory related issues. Can be so strong sometimes that even putting it on the chest can be a little much for some people. So you either put it down lower or on the back and shoulders. And Eucalyptus globulus is not something I would use like on somebody under the age of 6, because it's almost so strong for the expansion of the lungs that it can be almost a little stifling to a little young person like that. And so it makes the breath more shallow because it's too strong. So that's why with children and people who are very sensitive with respiratory issues, we usually switch more to like myrtle and larch and things like that. Even hyssop, it's better tolerated. I love me some eucalyptus, but it's the seals hitting the beach. The Navy seals hitting the beach where. Myrtle's a little bit more refined, and even Eucalyptus radiata and Polybroct are a little bit more refined. They don't have like such sharp edges that like the globulus does. Now, ironbark is different chemistry. So even though it's eucalyptus,
Mhm.
has a bit more of an anti-inflammatory effect. Not
Mhm.
really the greatest for respiratory related issues. You know, any of the eucalyptuses that have a bit more of that lemony scent, you know,
Yeah.
they can be good for anxiety. They can be good for calming the body. They're anti-inflammatory. And they're used a lot of times in treating joint related issues. Therapically, Ironbark eucalyptus is one of the main oils we use for cleaning cords, you know, not necessarily cutting cords, but cleaning
Okay.
cords. Another one that works not quite as well as the ironbark is the Eucalyptus citrodora. Again, also very anti-inflammatory, lemony scent, anti-anxiety, very good for joints. So like the Arthrocare blend that we put in, is a lot of lovage, but then a lot of Eucalyptus citrodora. And so, I could have used ironbark, but citrodora tends to be a little bit more anti-inflammatory, where the ironbark is a little bit better etheric cleanser of the cords. And so that's usually where I go with that. Anything where you're needing to reduce inflammation, or you have like a joint issue or an unstable joint, you could always use ironbark or Eucalyptus citrodora. But even though they're eucalyptuses, they're very, very different. They're not something you would use interchangeably. Like
Right.
they both have their lanes, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about the globulus is good for just, a lot of immune stuff? Is
Yeah.
iron bark also good for immune?
It's okay. So many other things would be so much better.
Yeah.
Like immune being inflammation, yes, but like fighting viruses and bacteria. I mean, any essential oil has a component that's antiviral and antibacterial, but
Right.
some are so much stronger that like you almost kind of don't mention the other ones because of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it does, but I mean, it wouldn't even make my top 20 go to for viral properties.
Okay.
I did make one of this blend, like sometimes I just do weird experiments, and I took all the different oils that have lemon scent. And so that would be like lemongrass and lemon and citronella and melissa and the two like ironbark and Eucalyptus citrodora and lemon verbena, and I just went down the list. And when I put them all together, they it was kind of an interesting thing. It was an experiment, and the lemon scent is tied to a certain chemical component in each of the oils. Like the things that give things a scent are also tied to its chemistry, right? To its makeup. That's why, like when you smell something different from a different region, a lot of times it has slightly different chemical makeup.
Right.
And so, all of that together, it was very good for lymphatic function, which was not surprising. And it wasn't super relaxing, but it did reduce anxiety. Like it wasn't like massive over the top, but it was like, oh, it's like soothing, but not like in a sleepy way. Where like some, like you sit and you inhale something like spikenard and you go like, oh, I'm feeling relaxed, but also I need to go to bed, or like I can't really think. Where this was, because anytime you use something that has that lemon scent, it's also has an uplifting component to it. Like it kind of heightens your mental faculties, not like peppermint or rosemary would make you focus, but it just like it's a little bit of like your body chemistry, like your what's the term that they use for, but anyway, it's just, it's a bit more uplifting. It's not super long lasting, but if you're in a little bit of a funk, it helps you to be a little bit more upbeat for a little while.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Excellent. Thank you, sir.
You're so welcome.
And we'll catch you later.
Have a good new year.
Yeah, well, do that. You too. You and Sam.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And then go ahead, Chris, then Cindy.
Hey, Chris.
Thanks, Sam. Hey, Greg.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Did you have a good Christmas?
We did. We've been on the road for the last 10 days or so, and
Oh my goodness.
yeah, and then
Oh.
all the flights got canceled with Southwest, and so we're having to drive from Las Vegas to St. Louis.
Oh,
So,
dear.
yeah, so we're
I'm
a couple
sorry
days
to-
in the car. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Because if we didn't, we wouldn't get home till there was just no flights, so we wouldn't even get home till the weekend if we did it. So this is the faster way.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
safe travels. to you
Yeah,
both.
yeah. Hey, it's a road trip. We're driving through the Southwest. It's beautiful.
There you go.
No old stomping grounds. I'm kind of loving it a little bit.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I have a question, Greg.
Uh-huh.
This seems to happen every time I go to the hospital. It's the next day I'm super drained. You know how our friend is in the hospital.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. How's your
you
friend, by
know,
the way? How's your friend, by the way?
well, he's still in the ICU, but the doctors are, happy, very happy with his progress.
Okay.
He's attached to a lot of machines.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's a lot of fear there too,
Sure,
sensitive. But here's what I do, or I did yesterday. I doused myself with chakra root cleanser,
Okay.
and I brought my camphor and sprayed myself after, cut cords. What am I missing?
Clean the cords. Clean the
Clean the
cords.
cords.
Yeah,
Okay.
clean them with like we were just
Iron bark.
talking about iron bark eucalyptus or the Theracloid blend, and then
Okay.
health rays. Lots of health rays.
Clean my health race, or
Yeah,
inhale the health-
straighten them, clean them.
Okay.
Use the blend or use your fingers and go through and clean them out, and to really go wide, because that's the thing. Like when you go to a hospital, it's very congesting.
Got
It's people where their bodies are degenerating or decaying or whatever we're calling that. And when you get in and around that, it's very congesting. And so you just need to go through and open up the health rays a bit and clean out the cords. I'd probably open up the health rays first and then clean the cords.
Health race, then cords. Thank you so much.
I don't know that it matters a whole lot which one you do first, but that's probably the way I'd do it.
Okay, I will do it.
As long as you do them both. Yeah.
Okay. And then with regards to elementals, camphor versus stagnation, what would be the difference in how you use the two?
Both are super good. The thing with camphor is it's very good for kind of cleansing the space, and it does have a cleansing effect that's kind of like a little bit more specific to certain kinds of elementals. And so the stagnation blend is like a very general a general cleanser, but camphor, I don't think I've ever talked about this before. I think I've alluded to it, but there's one kind of elemental, which, an elemental is just simply an energy we attract from the environment, right? So, whatever is going on with body processes, emotional makeup, our physical makeup, our mental makeup, we're attracting energies from the environment to bring these things into form. Whatever we feel intensely attracts elementals from the environment, or think repetitively enough attracts energy from the environment. And when we go through and we do our cleansing, or when we bless the earth, or when we do our meditation, or when we stimulate lymphatic movement, it displaces the lower vibrational elementals. And so stagnation is tied to really stimulating lymphatic movement along the spine. And so it's about clearing the elementals off that are you could say a bit more deeply embedded into your physiology or your spine. And so we're actually tonight going to do a little thing on the spine, not with stagnation, but with something else, just because of it's good for our immune system as well. And so there is one elemental that actually feeds or gets agitated by spiritual energy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, yeah, like,
That
and so
one.
I've kind of alluded to it, but this is why, like, when people, like in different churches, when they do exorcisms and stuff, where they have to be trained, because if you just try to come at it really super hard with like spiritual energy and you're just doing prayer, you
Mhm.
actually make it worse. And a lot of times in energy circles, like with pH and things like that, when people say they're oh, I feel like I'm expelling a lot, it's that elemental is agitated.
It moves around. Yeah.
Yeah. It moves around, it gets agitated, it's super congesting to like the solar plexus or wherever it's at. And camphor actually helps to neutralize that one particular kind of elemental. That's I don't make a
okay.
big deal out of it, but like
Mhm.
that's, because it's like, it's to the general public, they're like, what are you talking about elementals? And then you're talking about this weird one, so I don't go too deep on some things, but they use camphor in clearing spaces where like acts of violence have happened, or where like houses are haunted or something of that nature. And a lot of times that's just a bunch of elemental activity. Like, so you're going through and you're cleaning that up. But even in practices like, say, devotional practices to like Ganesha, and I think even to Vishnu, they'll burn little chunks of camphor in that devotional practice. And again, it's about overcoming obstacles and things like this. But if you think about what are the obstacles are the conditioning. The conditioning is what normal people call, what we call elementals. Like, elementals and conditioning are just two sides of the same coin. So we have like kind of an etheric or energetic explanation of what conditioning is, where most people just see conditioning of you've had these experiences, you've had repetition of these experiences, they've been reinforced by either strong emotions or repetitive thought, and this kind of conditions the person to have certain responses in situations. The energetic explanation of this is all of that, but because you've had those strong emotions or those experiences or that repetitive thought, you've attracted elementals from the environment, and you're mixing it with the thought energy or the emotional energy to help bring it into form or create a thought form. And so the class that we're doing in Seattle there, when I'm up there in a couple of weeks,
Mhm.
is a deeper way of even unwinding that in you. But also, what happens, like, if you think about it, like, okay, you have the thoughts inside you, you're thinking something repetitively, or you have the strong emotion, right? So there's things that are inside you, but there's also still external events that have happened that are impacting you to a great degree. Like, so say you had an old traumatic event, or you did something, you could say even you did something and it was super embarrassing or something. Like, there's part of you that is like, I'm turning away from that, or I'm trying to manage that, or I don't want to see it. But if you think about it, it kind of stimulates a certain response, right? So there's either things up that are floating around your head, like, how in cartoons they see little balloons above somebody's head that has the words in them, that's like, their dialogue.
Yeah.
But like, if you recall an event and you can feel something, an emotion, a thought, engage something, it's because there's still a connection, and there's still either the energy of thought mixed with elementals or just the elementals themselves left in those things. And so a lot of times what causes people things like anxiety and fears and even effects like the things that they think about is actually the tie to these things. And so when we did that class at the beginning of December, where we went through and we unwound the health rays, that was an important piece to kind of go through and put into motion. And if you had that class or didn't, this next piece, it can stand on its own, but it's building on the Metatron class, the health ray class, the Phoenix technique. All of these things were like moving forward to this thing, which is going to be a completely different approach to how we've done classes, the class that we do in Seattle there. And we're still going to be inhaling oils and doing all that kinds of things, but a little bit less patterns and a little bit more of working the inner and the outer at the same time. And so it's a bit of a different approach, but I find it to be more deeply psychologically healing. And sometimes why somebody doesn't respond to normal treatment, be it holistic or orthodox medicine, is tied to this component, like it is tied to this. And so you see this in really extreme situations where somebody was traumatized by, like an accident or a shooting or something like that. But we have much smaller, much lower grade things that are just kind of peppered in our auric field out in the periphery, that even going through and doing meditation and healing just doesn't clean them out, because they are thought energy mixed with elementals. They're a thought form, but they're more than just a thought form. It's like a cluster of thought forms, like it's like a beehive kind of, where it's a bunch. And so it starts to be, it could be like a group thought form, or it could be, but it's like what they call in the Middle East and in the Jewish tradition, like a genie. And so, genies can be
got
made.
legs.
What's that?
It's got legs.
Yeah, it's got legs. And so there's ways of deconstructing these things that have happened to us or that we've thought, because a lot of what we think is tied to past experiences, but it's also tied to other people's influence. And it's also tied to the collective unconscious. Like, it's not just we're thinking all our own thoughts. We're thinking our own thoughts and a bunch of other stuff. And we're trying to like filter it all out. And so this practice that I'm going to be showing you guys is more about making it so that you're processing your own thoughts and not taking on or processing other people's stuff. Because a lot of it is, like, you could even say the generational stuff that we started to tap into in the Metatron class. There's thought processes that go down through the generations that aren't necessarily tied to genetics, but it's tied to like an energetic genetics that kind of goes down, or an energetic makeup. And sometimes we're just locked into that thought process because of how old and how strong that thought form is. And sometimes you can wrestle with it and diminish it, or sometimes you can just disengage it and step away from it. And with what we're going to be doing, you don't even really need to choose. You either heal it or you step away from it. Like, it's not something you even have to figure out. You're just going to be able to do it.
So fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, we started going down this road. We started going down this road with the Sandalphon class. And there's still something I haven't talked about with the Sandalphon class. We are still going to do one more study group with Sandalphon at some point. But we need to do this class in Seattle first. And then I'll put it out.
Oh, so excited.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're so
Greg,
welcome.
one more
Yeah,
question.
fire away.
So one of my patients we've talked about her, extreme anxiety, not able to work. So she's coming in for healing with her husband. I was thinking of doing an oil protocol to start with for the two of them. What would you recommend? 'Cause
She has anxiety and he does not, or like, are they
You
getting
know,
along? Like, what's going on
I
there?
think, yeah, I believe they're getting along, but being the caregiver type, I think a lot is falling on him, and she won't leave the house without him. She's afraid when he's not around, so there's a lot of things that's falling
Okay.
on her shoulder.
I would do like a lot of like cleaning the cords. So either the iron bark or the etheric cord blend, and I would do protective web work. The protective web just helps to, it helps clean things up from the environment, but also what happens sometimes is like, we have the surface of the chakra and then it kind of comes down. And then between the surface of the chakra and the body is the protective web. And I know you know this, but I'm just saying it for everybody. And so the protective web is like a filter that keeps parasites and things from the environment from kind of coming in your energy body. And so what happens sometimes when things are coming at you, like somebody's projecting some energy or you're just in a dirty environment or something, that energy comes in and it hits those protective webs, and the protective web kind of tightens up a bit. Like it tightens up to keep that stuff from coming in, right? And so what happens over a period of time is it tightens up, but then the situation goes away, and then it doesn't just relax, it stays kind of tight. And the flip side of that is that it also inhibits the kind of energy that can come out from deep. So like if you're trying to release like stress, for example, you can only release the amount of stress that directly corresponds to how much tension you have in your protective webs, right? So if you have, this much energy stuck in your system, but your protective webs are super like tense, you might only be able to release this much, no matter how hard you work it, right? But there's this much there. And so just because you can't get more out doesn't mean that it's not there. It's just the webs are holding it in too much. Like it's like what it's like people talk about like repression of emotions. It's not always like a conscious choice. It's the reason sometimes they're repressed is somebody came at them so hard that those webs have tightened up. And even if they tried to release them, really super hard, they kind of can't. Like energetically, they're limited in what they can do. And so by going through and working the webs, you're allowing for more energy to release out like easily by going through and doing that. And so by going through and cleaning the cords between these two people, I mean, it just helps with reducing the stress and like the fear and all that kind of stuff. But for both of them, the webs probably need to be substantially like kind of cleaned and relaxed so that for one, energy flows between them better, but also if there's stress or anxiety or fear that's been bouncing back and forth, because like her fear is also felt by him somewhat, right?
Right.
It allows him to release that as well and not get the burnout that happens with being a caretaker.
Got it. And- okay.
Because a lot of times what we would call burnout is, you know, it's fatigue,
Right.
but it's also contamination. You know, and I don't mean that in like a negative way. It's just
Mhm.
you're around a person who's having a hard time, who is maybe sick, who is
Mhm.
like anxiety or fear or stress or whatever it is. And even if they're consciously okay, their body is going through something.
Mhm.
Some of that's going to impact the people that are taking care of them,
Right.
you know. I mean, like, think about what you said, like you went into the hospital and you felt fatigued. You know, some of that was energetic, and some of that was you did get a little bit drained being around those people, you know, just because they're sick. And so you do things to support the energy levels, like, you know, like thyme or cinnamon or you know, anything that's just fortifying, right? And Ravensara. But then you go through and you kind of clean up the energy body. A lot of times that will regulate it. But if you need more, you could do that. And so for somebody like that, he could be using one of the softer times or Ravensara just to help keep the body strong, you could say.
Wow. Thank you so much, Greg.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so
Yeah, you're so welcome.
what the protocol I would use for them, the oil protocol would be in the psychic defense. For
Actually,
a web?
for going through and with the ironbark eucalyptus and the etheric quartz, I just have them inhaling. Like I wouldn't even have them directed through, you know, different parts of their body or anything like that. I just have them inhaling. The
Okay.
protective web, I would just do the thing where you have them go and like put the awareness on their body, and then, you know, find a spot where there's tension or, you know, whatever, and then have them inhale the protective web there. Like your protective webs are heavily impacted by the nervous system and the fascia, and which is connective tissue. And so by putting your awareness on the different spots of the body where you're feeling tension or a heaviness or an uneasiness, you're basically unwinding that energy that's stuck in there, that is reflected in the protective web. But it's like, I mean, this is a long explanation, but like you have like different, like little, like you could say little balls of energy that get stuck in the body, and they'll dictate how tight that protective web is supposed to be, or keep that energy stuck on the protective web. And so by putting your awareness on the body and inhaling, you're beginning to unwind the stimuli that keeps the protective web so tight and allows for more energy just to flow out of the system, like more old energy, used up energy, you know, old emotions, lower emotions, all that stuff just flows out much, much easier. And so you could say like anxiety and phobias and fears are a person is being impacted on by these like energy cysts, be it either internal or external, and it's pushed them out of their like awareness, like their ability to be aware, like they become aware more of those thoughts rather than of like who they are or what's happening in front of them or the good things in that day, or, you know, it keeps pushing them a little bit more off center a little bit, and it makes it harder for them to get back to the place where they can just be calm and relaxed.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, yeah. That's why
Thank you
it's so
so
hard to
much.
treat sometimes. Like
Yeah.
it's not just like, oh, you're anxious because, XYZ or your endocrine system's off. It's this really complex thing that you're having to unwind. And sometimes it's different from person to person. Like there might be more emphasis of things in the body. There might be more past experiences, it might be like I think I told you one time, I treated like one of the most difficult cases of a migraine that I ever treated. I mean, I was aggressively treating it and it just was not responding. And the person had gone through all kinds of stuff with the different doctors and neurologists and all kinds of things. And none of us could find anything that would bring her relief. And so I just threw everything out the window. I was like, okay, something else is up. And it ended up being a person in their environment. Like a person in their environment was I think the clinical term is an a-hole. They were just really kind of insulting and whatever. And it wasn't so much like, oh, that hurt my feelings or whatever. What the person said is like they don't direct it at them, but they direct it outward, like at their work and everything. I guess the guy was just like a lunatic at work. And he would come home and he would be kind of normal, but that is what was actually causing the migraine with the person, was just, kind of how we were talking about, cleaning cords and the protective webs, like with your other situation. That would be an even more extreme application of that, because like that person at work was like a lunatic at work, and they would come home and like that energy would just kind of cause the kids to act a particular way, cause her to get agitated and go into like fight flight mode, and it would cause her to have a migraine, and like it just caused all these chain reactions. And so there was no kind of changing him, so we cleaned up the environment, we cleaned up her, and they went away.
Wow.
And cleaning up her was just cleaning up the cords and the protective webs, by the way. That's all we did. Like I
Amazing.
didn't follow any protocols for migraines after that. I just cleaned her up.
I think I will try that.
Yeah.
Because this person has intense migraines.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much again.
You're so welcome.
See you soon.
Yeah, see you soon. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Tell Chris hi for me.
I will. Thank you.
Just on that, Greg, someone's asking, did this apply to funeral homes and or jails?
Yes, and especially yes for the jails. I mean, jails can just be low vibration just because of the nature of it. But depending on, like, if you're going there, like, one of the most congested people that I've ever treated was a probation officer. And he had done it for like 40 years or something, 45 years. And it just took months of just cleaning up the outer part of the energy body for it to even be able to treat anything else. And those things need to be cleaned up, but depending on what the person was there for, like if it's like they're an authority figure or something like that in the jail, it might even need more than that. But in general, those would be the ideas. Funeral homes, like, it sounds weird, but they're almost not as bad as a hospital, just because they don't have the quantity of people, and there's bodies decaying, obviously, because there's dead bodies there. But at the same time, part of why it's so hard in the hospital is you're walking around, and people who are sick, their energy body, like their physical body, sees you walking around and goes, oh, let's plug into them to get a little life force. Where at the funeral home, it's just decaying energy. It's not something trying to plug into you, right? And so actually not quite as bad. I mean, still contaminating somewhat, but not quite as bad. And then usually people are there to mourn a loved one. And so even if they're sad, the heart's still activated, has a cleansing effect on some of the contamination that can happen in the funeral home. So funeral homes are, I mean, still you want to clean up a little bit, but not as bad as you would think.
And then go ahead, Cindy, then Deborah.
Hey, Miss Cindy.
Hey, Greg.
Hey.
Wow, this is amazing. I'm writing as fast as I can. Okay, so I have actually, this kind of ties into one question I had.
Okay.
And I did want to make a comment. And I can't remember what class, Greg, but I'd have to go back through my notes. But on a weekend class that I did, I used one person at work as my subject. And
Okay.
that Friday, I was so upset I wanted to quit. I mean, it was so overwhelming. And my job and hers interact every day.
Uh-huh.
And that weekend, whatever we did, you said it would make that person not have any impact on you. And I'm not saying it quite correctly.
That was probably the Phoenix technique. Like that sounds like the Phoenix technique class.
I'm not sure that I took the Phoenix, but I'd have to go look. But anyway, at the end of that class, Greg, and it's been maybe a month or two,
Mhm.
I can tolerate this woman a lot better. And there is a total, like, when she does what she does,
Uh-huh.
it has no effect on me.
Oh, nice.
Zero. It was so amazing.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I was just, and I've been watching to see if I would get triggered again, and there's no trigger.
Yeah, like so the idea of being triggered is kind of like what we were just talking about, where it's either like thought forms that are stuck in the body, or like concentrated thought forms that are like memories or floating out in your energy body a little bit. And like if you think of the memory, you go through and you access it, but because these things are connected to you, you're kind of managing them without really knowing it. And you're being influenced by them without really knowing it. And there's not really a way to cut from them, because there's something like there's a Velcro with the thing that's external to the thing that's internal. There's almost like this Velcro. So even if you're able to go through and cut it, it just like reattaches, because it's like attracts like, right? The two energies attract to each other. And so even if there's a disconnect, it doesn't usually last for very long. And so by going through and doing these things internally and then turning it outward and then doing the same thing externally, you diminish it to where you just basically, what you're doing is you're not really severing the tie from it, you're just draining it. It's like you're almost like just bleeding it out, and then it just kind of goes away. Like it's like if you have a memory of it, like say you had situation XYZ happened and it had a big emotional charge, and every time you think about it, you get a little triggered or something. That's always something you're managing, even when you're not thinking about it. Like it's always just kind of there, but you're distracted, right? And so when you go through and do this thing that we're talking about, you basically just are kind of like draining it out so that it just almost like ceases to exist. And so you still have the incident, you still have the memory, but it's like recalling something you saw on TV. Like it's like, oh yeah, I saw that episode of whatever it was. And there's no real like emotion to it. It just seems like even the details aren't as crystal clear as they used to be. It just kind of fades away.
That
Yeah.
was kind of how it was after that class for that lady.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I keep I always have somebody.
Oh, yeah. We all do.
So there's a woman that is right next to my office in another
Mhm.
office near me.
Mhm.
And every time I talk to her, like I like her and I can resonate with a lot of things about her, but I just I'm totally drained after a conversation with her. And she thinks that she's a really, I don't know, she doesn't know how, I don't really know how to describe her. Most people are kind of scared of her unless they've developed a relationship with her. And she only has certain relationships with certain people.
Okay.
So I'm wondering what would be helpful. Like, I'm just having a normal conversation with her, and she repeats herself, and I just feel totally drained from it. I don't really know how to describe it more than
Yeah.
that.
So I would use something like ironbark, eucalyptus, or the etheric cords to clean the cords between you guys, and I would do that on a regular basis. I would do that, and then I would do do you happen to have that blend blue healer?
I don't think I do, but I might get.
Hmm. Do you have any blue oils like German chamomile or yarrow or dark blue tansy or blue tansy? Anything that's got.
I don't think I do. So blue healer or what else? And I'll just get it because I
Well,
really.
are you going to take the class in the middle of the month, in the middle of January?
Is that the class you were just talking about?
What's it called? The Foundation of Mystical Healing or something? Yeah. It'll be like there's going to be a whole range of things in there. So yeah. I mean, you might go through it. I was going to say you could probably wait because there's going to be like a little bottle of it, but not a 5 ml bottle. But you might want to get blue healer anyway. Like, yeah,
Okay.
that's probably a good idea. And so, there's like the body tonic and everything. Get the 5 ml bottle. Like, get the 5 ml bottle. And so this is what you'll want to do. Like, think of her, right? Like, you say you're at home and you sit and you think of her. Like, and you go,
Right.
okay, I'm thinking of her. Like, it doesn't even have to be good or bad or anything. You just start thinking about her. And
Okay.
like, if you pay attention to your body, like before and after, like before you think of her, you go, okay, I'm gonna check in with my body. And like, where do I feel tension? Where do I feel this? Where do I feel that? Right. Then you think of her, you recall a couple of interactions and everything. And then you check in with your body. You'll notice that like there's weird tensions in your body that weren't there just a couple minutes ago. Right. So whenever you think of her, like just think about her for a little bit and then let it go. And then check in with your body, right? Check in like, okay, I feel tension in my shoulders. I feel tension in my jaw. I feel tension in my gut. My hamstrings feel tight, like, whatever it is. And then inhale the oil as you are paying attention to your body. Like, you're not trying to fix it. You're not trying to make it go away. You're simply just putting your attention and awareness on that spot and just inhaling the oil. Do several rounds of that where you go through and you go, okay, thinking of her, and then You inhale the blue healer and then you let it go. And then you go, okay, think of her again. Where do I feel it again? And then do it again. And then eventually work your way into the spine, right? Like start exploring the spine up and down. Like where do you feel it in the spine? And so after doing that for like probably a session or two, then like maybe about the third session, do that again. But then instead of just going within your body, as you think of her, like again, not even like the good, the bad, whatever, you're just thinking of her. Inhale as you think of her. And what you're doing is you're changing the dynamic of how your energy body and her energy body are interacting. That's why you're getting so tired. It's a dynamic that she's not even conscious of it. So if you brought it to her attention, she would just say, I don't know about that. That's kind of rude. And you're kind of weird.
Oh, it would hurt.
Like, what's that?
Yeah. It would hurt her feelings if I
Yeah.
had said,
She's not aware of it. She is not aware of it.
yes.
And she couldn't change it consciously if she tried. Like
Yes.
you really have to be trained on how to shift it. And so, I mean, that's what I'm going to be running you guys through. We are going in this deep, but this is just like the Reader Digest version of it. And the Blue Healer should start to change that dynamic between the two of you. But the class in the middle of the month, it's this whole range of, there's these seven components that you work. Yeah. And so we'll be working all of them.
So that class is what would help with her.
Will help with her and anybody. Like the good people, you'll feel a greater connection to. You'll be able to go deeper into your spiritual practice because of how you're interacting with the light that flows through nature. But the difficult people, let's just say their actions and their words have less potency, and it becomes easier for you to just go, yeah, I don't know about that. Just step away from it.
Right.
It's like different ways of like approaching something. Like, okay, this causes me stress. This causes me trauma. That is true. And we go through and unwind that. But this is almost like, why does it cause you stress? Why does it cause you trauma? Or how does it do it? Rather than just unwinding the stress and the trauma, it's like, let's change how we're mechanically interacting with people in the environment so that the energy coming in and out either sticks or doesn't stick or attract something completely different.
Right. Okay. So I had a couple more questions.
Sure. By the way.
So Michael, has the baby 1.5 in the house.
Uh-huh.
And I've been thinking about getting a diffuser for them.
Sure.
So what oils could they diffuse in the house? Because, we don't want to overwhelm the baby.
What are you trying to do? Like, are you just trying to calm everybody down? Are you trying to immunity? Like, what are you trying to do?
Well, probably, I would say calming, and we want something that smells good because Michael's really sensitive to smells. And we don't want to overwhelm the baby.
Okay. So you could go a couple of different routes. I mean, one straight up easy one is lavender. Lavender works great for little kids. Like it's very calming, reduces nervous tension. It's very soothing. That could be a good one. For respiratory related issues and a little bit of immunity would be a myrtle, like just regular myrtle. Any of the myrtles would work, but just regular myrtle would be what I would use to target the stuff for the baby. And then one that helps with like improving mood and things for babies. I mean, and adults too, but I've used this a lot with kids is African bluegrass. I really like using the bluegrass on children. Like it's it's kind of a weird thing to say. It almost makes them less defiant and just like give them a better sense of well-being. And so it makes it easier to kind of direct them or redirect them, or you're trying to get them to go to bed, and instead of fighting back, they just kind of makes it easier to get them into bed, and all those kinds of things. And so lavender to relax, and I'd say the bluegrass to uplift, and myrtle for like respiratory related things. If you want to go like straight immunity, the one that works the best for kids is thyme linalool, LINALOL.
Okay, that's helpful. When in the mornings when I take the oils that I'm taking,
Mhm.
I'm wondering if should you take oils on an empty stomach, or
It doesn't really matter. Like the only there, I mean, there's a few where like I would always put them in water or juice, like lemongrass, for example. If you just take it straight, it's a little bit irritating to the stomach. But if you put in a little bit of water, it's fine. And so I would say, if anything, just water, like water or juice or coffee or whatever it is.
right? Okay, all right. Thank you. I really,
You're so
really-
welcome. Merry Christmas or Happy New Year. I guess Christmas already happened.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you.
And then go ahead, Deborah, then Linda.
Hey, Deborah.
Hey, Greg and Sam.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I was really inspired by your solstice, what you did for us for solstice, and it's on my mind all the time.
Oh, good.
So, and it really changed my meaning of Christmas as well.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah, the whole idea of gift giving just
Yeah, like that's the thing that like Master Cho used to say is he'd say, the most obnoxious person has to practice giving once a year and activate their heart, whether they like it or not, because of Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd really gotten away from gifts because of so many different reasons. And it was just like,
Yeah.
now it
As you
hasn't.
get older, it's more of just like an expression, or expression of gratitude, or that you care
Yeah.
about somebody or something. But I mean, as adults, we kind of like, we want something, we go get it. Like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of different than it is with little kids, but still, I think sometimes it's just the act of like, doing something. And the thing too is it doesn't always have to be a physical gift. Like the thing that we go through and do, like for Christmas, is like I go through and I do a couple of meditations, and I go through and I have a list of people, and we go through and we just sit and bless like each person, like one by one on the list. And so we go through and we do that with the students, and people that I work with, and family members, and we generate this big list, and so it doesn't always have to be going to the store.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So that really energized my Christmas day.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And then the other piece, though, is the focusing on the temples on a daily
Oh,
basis.
yeah.
So
How'd that treat you?
well, within the first few days, I was having these intense moments of just automatically going into like a meditative place.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
happening in the weirdest times, like when I was driving the car, I could barely keep my eyes open. I felt like I needed to pull over. And now it has stopped. And I
Mhm.
feel, and I'm a little like, okay, so was it just a shift in my energy and my body was taking it in, so it was dramatic? Or have I allowed negativity to lower my light?
So like what can happen is like you can kind of like you'll make a shift, because what that's doing is that's hitting the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is tied to executive functions, and so it's tied to like behaviors and decision making and your ability to like say like, okay, I want to go to the store, and then monitoring the behavior of like, okay, I got to go to the car, I got to get in this, I got to grab my wallet, I got to drive to the store, I got to get what I need from the store, like, so it's monitoring all that action to produce the result, right? And so this area is very heavily impacted by conditioning, which we were talking about earlier. And you could say like it's a byproduct of just a lot of our past experiences. And so a lot of times when you're trying to do something new or different, you're having to do it through the I don't know what you would call it, like the veil or the processes of the prefrontal cortex. And so what happens is you might make a bit of a shift, and then you kind of hit where you're just gaining your equilibrium a little bit, but the shift is there, right? But it's like you almost get to where you're like, but I could use another shift. Like I like that, like, because it feels good. Like you basically are getting to step away from the past and get to be more engaged in the present, where, we all kind of got a little bit of a foot in the past, a little bit of the foot in the present. And a lot of times the past is more of a difficulty than we give it credit for, like, or that we realize. And so by going through and working that simple thing, it's almost like you get to go, set that aside for a moment, like, and so you can do different versions of this, like, I've taught it in several different circles, so I can't remember exactly what part I showed you guys, because I've got my hands on about 4 different situations where I'm teaching in different situations, and there are different modalities. And so you can do one version is just putting your awareness here, right? Then the next version is you could put your awareness there, and you can do mantras, like you could do something soothing, like Om Mani Padme Hum is nice. Like I like it for that. But the one that I use a lot for myself is the one for Tara. Om Tare, Tu Tare, Tur Soha. Like if you just Google like Tara, there's a bunch of different Taras, but that's like the base root mantra for almost all the Tara mantras. And so you just keep your awareness up there, and you can chant that mantra. There's other mantras that you can use to go through and like purify it more, but it's really not so much about purifying as it is like think of it as just like calming down, like something that's like agitated. Like if you were to go through and go, okay, what are the different parts of the body or the physiology or the mind or whatever that is the most agitated, like from a scale of like start with 1 and work your way down the list. The prefrontal cortex is probably number 1 on just about everybody. Like, I mean, it is, it's just a byproduct of all our past experiences, mostly the negative ones, because the negative ones impact us and we experience them more intensely a lot of times than we do the positive ones. Because we're trying to resolve it. So we keep thinking about it, we keep feeling it, keep trying to resolve it, and it keeps imprinting on this area. And so, I mean, it's just the way we're wired. And so by going through and doing the temples like that, it really unwinds some of that. And to go after and just like clean it can be a little intense. Like it can actually even cause a little bit of a frontal headache a little bit, like if you went at it really intensely. I mean, it's not causing any harm, it just kind of hurts a little bit. But the other thing to do is you put your awareness on the temples, and then you move to just one side. And it doesn't matter which side that you start, but I usually have people start on the left just so to make it uniform. But you put your awareness on the one temple, and then when you move your awareness, move it through the head and come out on this side. And then leave it there for a little bit, and then move it to the other side. And then keep going back and forth, right? And so what this is doing is, because this is a byproduct of the brain, so even though it's the prefrontal cortex, there's still a little bit of the left side and the right side that's being more dominant in the function. And so by moving the awareness back and forth, you're really cultivating that aspect of the more intuitive part of the mind, which is going to be more spontaneous. It's going to see beyond the senses, and it's the aspect of the mind that is interacting with the soul. You're almost like dragging some of that in and moving it back and forth through the prefrontal cortex. And I would say things change after that. Like it's been my experience. Like it would be hard to go and just teach the general public that, because there's too much other stuff that has to be unwound. But once you've been kind of doing the practice a little bit and you do it and you go, wow, that was amazing. Like it kind of takes the edge off of things a little bit, or the crankiness, or the like, oh, like that hurt my feelings, or like it takes all of that off without having to be super specific about any particular situation. And so, like, I taught this one person how to do it, and she made some comment. She goes, I feel a little bit less triggered by things. And she goes, I don't always just go to the negative. And see, like, that is something that our brain is wired to focus on negative things, to try to resolve them, prevent them, or not let them happen again. And so it's almost like it's still good. You're not completely unwinding it, but you're tempering that part of the prefrontal cortex that is tied to this like survival type drives, when you can almost like tell that part of the brain, like, okay, but life is good. Like life is okay. We're not running from a cheetah in the jungle. Like, we don't have to have our guard up like that. You know what I mean? And our physiology hasn't caught up with how life is now, like you could say. And it just helps you to not have your foot so much in the past, and it makes it much easier to be more current or spontaneous in the present, if that makes any sense.
Well, that's the practice that you had on the solstice.
Mhm.
And it is like, it really touched on what my goals are right now and what I've been working really hard, like to, it's real easy to walk out and see, oh, the garden is a mess, when actually the garden is gorgeous, you know?
Right,
And
right. A perfect example. Yeah,
yeah,
perfect example.
well, it's the simplicity, the mundane
Mhm.
that really I've been trying to focus on. And you know, I'm coming out of a divorce, and it's there's one lingering little piece of it
Mhm.
that just this evening just knocked me off my feet. And so
Yeah, try
uh,
doing this little reboot. Like try like, okay. So because the thing is like there is a thing that has to be addressed, but at the same time, like you don't want to have to deal with like all the things from the past, not even with this person, just like all the negative things like, okay, when I was 5, somebody stomped on my toe and then somebody yelled at me and then this happened and then that happened. You know, a lot of times we're coming from a place of, because of our wiring, because of the brain, that we're coming from the place of there's this, and then there's all the other times that somebody's done something. Where, like here, you just want to be able to, like, okay, there's a difficulty, there's a negativity, but let's let the negativity just be its own thing rather than that with, 10 years or 20 years or whatever it is of other negative things. And so I know like doing this, I mean, this is going to sound weird, but like, how many times can I say that tonight? This is going to sound weird, but it works so well sometimes that this is, it's almost insulting to people, or people get weirded out because people are used to like certain kinds of interactions and reactions from people. And it can make you like so non-reactive that you're not participating in somebody else's like little thing, and it stirs them up a little bit. And so like in my younger years, like doing some version of this, like being in and around my family, not my immediate family, but like, like a holiday or something. People are telling stories, and if you listen, like a lot of times, not maybe people who are in our circles, but just like general people, like if you listen to them, it's just a lot of negative things that they're talking about, because it's the brain. They're processing the things that were the obstacles or the painful things or the upsetting things or the things that cause them discomfort, and that's what they're communicating. And so when I would be around them and, having done this prefrontal work, when they would say these things, I wouldn't give the response that would be like a normal response, because like I wasn't getting like caught up in the
validation of their
the explanation of whatever it is. And so I had to ask Master Choa, like, it's becoming a problem. Like I go places and I just think we're having a nice, peaceful conversation. And then somebody gets really super upset or angry at me. I don't even know why. And, he pointed this situation out, and he said, sometimes you have to like pretend to be upset or pretend to be like worked up about it. And at first I thought, so I have to act all weird and emotional, but he was just like he would do this thing where he'd go, interesting, interesting. And at first I thought, well, that's kind of odd, but I started doing it with my family, and it works really well. Because it is validating them, where you don't also have to go follow the bouncing ball into their emotional turmoil and feel it with them. You know what I mean? Like you're giving them validation without having to go, oh, okay, now I'm standing in it. Yeah, this does suck. Yeah, like I feel it. I this does not feel good. I hear you, and I'm validating what you're saying. Or here you can go, yeah, I can observe that that's really not very pleasant. Yeah, and I can give you validation for that without getting my feet wet or dirty or whatever you want to call it. Does that
Well,
make sense?
Yeah, in my situation though, um, as I've gone through working the oils and raising my vibration
Uh-huh.
and all of that, I actually have people calling me or texting me out of the blue
Mhm.
and just saying they don't want to be my friend anymore. Just like, it's just been bizarre. So,
Yeah, people have a hard time with change. Like, and if you change, like,
it's, but they don't even know that they're going through these changes, and then all of a sudden it's so my life is drastic right now. I
Mhm.
am moving, I am making these changes in my thought process and everything, and so I just am so thankful we have these Tuesdays and I can
Yeah,
hear
good, good.
everyone.
Try doing the thing with the temples and the Tara mantra. Try doing it with the, I mean,
Yes.
if you can't do that one, Om Mani Padme Hum is probably easier. Like, like
No,
at
I
first
like,
you have to look at the mantra and go, okay, Om Tare, Tu
oh,
Tare, Tur
I've been
Swaha.
practicing since you introduced it to us, so I like it a
Oh,
lot.
good. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very, very soothing. It's very, very soothing.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Like anytime you need like something that's like soothing, there's all the oils and everything, but like sometimes you're like, I don't have an oil, or like, I don't know what to do. Go to that mantra. Just go to that mantra. Like, even if
Okay.
you don't put your awareness on the temples, just start like Om Tare, Tu Tare, Tu Swaha, and just like start chanting it. And all of a sudden we'll just go, yeah, that edge just kind of went away, or that agitation just went away. It's very, very soothing.
So that last little, what I call like a syllable, I found
Huh?
lots and lots of variations on it. You
Yeah.
spelled it at one time. How do you spell it again? Because I missed
Um,
it.
like you said, there's a bunch of different variations, but
Yeah.
if I remember right, it's SVAHA.
Okay.
So you go like swaha.
Okay. Great.
But even if you
Thank
say swaha, it's fine.
All right.
I
right.
just I have a little personal thing. I like the swaha, but
Yeah.
it's to each his own.
Well, thank you.
You're
Have
so
a great new year if I
yeah.
don't
You too. You too.
get in touch with you again. Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
And for all of you guys who came in for the deeper immune practice, we're just gonna finish up the Q&A and then we will get into that practice.
Yeah, we'll do maybe just another question or two, and then we'll.
Yeah, go ahead, Linda.
Hey, Linda.
And then Troy.
Hey, Greg. Oh, so good to see you.
Good to
So
see
I
you.
wanted to, yeah, I'm glad you stayed out of the cold weather.
Yes. We stayed out of cold weather, but
Driving into it.
yeah, we're driving into it. But all the Southwest canceled like almost all its flights until Saturday,
Yeah, I
and
saw
so
that.
threw all the airlines into crisis, and we couldn't get a ticket out, so we had to drive. Yeah, life happens. If that's my
So-
biggest problem of the month, I'm doing really good.
Yeah, you're doing good. And I'm
Yeah.
doing good. I'm in North Carolina and I did
Oh,
not
nice.
lose power, but
Yeah,
a lot
very
of
good.
people did.
Yeah.
So I wanted to follow up. Last time we spoke was during the immunity class a week ago,
Mhm.
Saturday,
Mhm.
and I let you know that I was having my reoccurrence of really bad diarrhea and cramping in my belly.
Oh yeah.
And there'd been this abdominal ultrasound and they found some clots in my portal vein and splenic vein and somewhere else, and a little pancreas growth. So since we spoke,
Okay.
I had an MRI last Wednesday.
Mhm.
I still haven't heard from the doctor, hopefully tomorrow. And I've been doing like two drops of heliochrysum
Perfect.
in water twice
Yeah.
a day for the blood clot.
Right,
Haven't
right.
gotten the pine oil yet. I think the mail got delayed because of the holidays, but I've been doing the
Oh, very well could
heli-
be. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's coming. But I am I am feeling physically better than I felt in a month.
Oh,
Like the
good.
diarrhea has resolved.
My energy's back. I don't have
Yeah.
any more pain in my abdomen, upper and lower.
Yeah.
So my question to you is this.
Yeah, the other thing, the other thing that's good about taking the helichrysum internally, and I can't remember if we talked about this or not, but we don't ever think about it like this, but helichrysum is actually really good for also reducing mucus in the gut, like mucus in the gut and mucus in the urinary tract. And so sometimes when we're having some weird digestive issues, it's not necessarily going to cause the cramping or anything like that, but it just kind of makes everything not work quite as well, and it makes it harder for muscles to contract in the digestive tract and everything. And the helichrysum, very good for the clotting issue, the blood clots and things like that, but it reduces inflammation and all that kind of good stuff. But it's a really good one to use for reducing mucus in the digestive tract. And in the old days, I used to make this concoction of it wasn't oils, it was herbs, but the main one was that Sanical, and I would mix it with like myrrh and golden seal and a bunch of herbal things, mullein. And you use it as like a cleanser. It cleans up all the mucus in the body, not so much in the respiratory tract, but in the digestive tract and the urinary tract. And when that happens, it's kind of weird. Like, you didn't realize you didn't feel good in a certain way until it's gone. And then you go, wow, I feel better in this area. Like, it's not like your whole body feels, but like these certain areas where like, oh, it feels a lot better. And so with the helichrysum, I would say that is as potent, if not even more potent, than that old thing that I used to make.
Okay.
And so even after the clotting thing is done, I still like to do it from time to time just to kind of clean up the digestive tract. And so it should be good for all of that.
So here's my question.
Mhm.
If the doctor really wants me to go on the blood thinners, I might do that, and I'm going to ask.
I would, just because I like we treat the clot stuff, but that's not one to like kind of mess around with. And if he puts you on blood thinner, it's probably not going to be forever. It's just going to be for a little while.
They're saying 6 months. I'm going to ask for 3 months and retest.
Yeah,
But if I do go on blood, if I go on the blood thinner, can I still use the helichrysum?
Yeah.
So there won't be any. They won't interfere with each other.
Like the thing that I would not use would be when you're on the blood thinner, I wouldn't use lemon, because lemon has a little bit of a thinning effect. Cassia, now cinnamon doesn't have a blood thinning effect, but cassia does a little bit. And then the herb ginkgo biloba. Don't use that. And then obviously like willow bark or aspirin or something like that, because your blood's already thin and you just don't want to keep making it thinner. And then the other thing that I would say is, like, when you don't need to worry about this with the helichrysum, but when they put you on blood thinners, the issue is that if you cut yourself, it becomes a thing where, depending on the dosage, you might have to go to the hospital because the bleeding won't stop because it won't clot. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
carry a little bottle of yarrow, like they're just a regular yarrow, and yarrow will stop even the craziest bleeding, like on really strong blood thinners. Sometimes it takes a little while, but it will stop it. And so the thing with yarrow is it doesn't cause your body just a clot, but it regulates the clotting mechanism. And so, like, if you have too many clots, it can, like, if you're just constantly producing a lot of clots, it can reduce that. And then if your body's not clotting, it actually can regulate that. And it wouldn't cause it throughout your whole body. Like if you say you cut your wrist, like right here, and you put it on there, it would cause the clotting to happen right there, not through the whole body.
Okay.
And so that could be like, we're not using it to treat what you have going on. For one, you can't use yarrow for a long period of time because it will, like after 3 or 4 weeks, it starts to interfere with your absorption of iron. And two, we want to break up existing clots, not regulate the clotting mechanism, right? And so who knows why they're there, but if they get cleaned up and then they stop being an issue, which it sounds like that's what they're thinking, you know. I can't remember, did you have COVID? Did you have COVID?
I've never had COVID, and as far as I know, and I haven't been vaccinated because I know both produce clotting.
Yeah, not everybody's having the issue, but some of the people when they got sick had severe clotting issues. And some of the early phases of COVID-19 were manifesting as embolisms, like the people were just having weird like clotting issues and like the lungs were filling with blood clots and so, you know, we never know, like if you had it, maybe there was a little bit of a clotting thing. I mean, clots happen, like they can happen from time to time. And so, you know, sounds like your doctor is just like, let's clean this up and then we'll retest. And 6 months is not a big thing. You know, the rest of your life, that's a thing. But like
Yeah.
6 months,
Yeah.
could be worse. But like, do we know anything about the growth on the pancreas?
Well, you suggested the pine oil, and I'm waiting for that to come. And
Okay.
the doctor I last saw thinks that I mean, I still don't know what they're going to tell me tomorrow, but it's possible the growth in pancreas is just some fluid buildup from the clotting.
Yeah.
But so my acupuncturist has also given me an herb you can put directly on a cut to clot, to help it clot. So
Oh,
I've
good.
got that. And
Do
I
you
have
remember
that.
what it is? I'm curious.
Let me see if I can tell you what it's called. And also, so I can still take heliochrysum when
Yeah.
I'm on it.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
And I'm also aware that you have to watch out for anything with vitamin K,
Right.
like kale, all the foods I like to eat.
Right,
So
right.
the herb, it's probably all in Chinese. It's all in Chinese, but yeah, she gave me an herb and it's a powder.
Will you ask her what that is and then email it or
Oh,
text it to us or something?
It's called Human, YUMANBALYAE. I'll email it to you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, perfect.
So I've got that, and I can also have yarrow as backup. Okay, well, I'm glad I can keep using the heliochrysum.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Good.
Okay. Oh, and one other question about what you recommended. You had recommended Mitake mushrooms for growth, but when I went to the Shaman Shack,
Oh, did I not
website-
email you
Okay.
the?
Yeah, I think we went and looked at that site afterwards as well, and I think they stopped carrying it, or maybe. And so we'll send you another reference. We'll send you another.
Yeah, sorry, I thought I had emailed you.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
And also you had said you might do a little something, you know, outside of the class. And if you did whatever you did, I think it really helped. So
Oh,
thank
good.
you.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
All right. I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, especially after the doctor. Let us know
Yeah.
what they say. Yeah,
All right. Thanks again.
you're so welcome.
And just really quick, people are asking something, is it okay to use yarrow on a fresh surgical wound if it starts to bleed?
Yeah.
And then-
I mean, your doctor probably won't be happy about it, but yeah.
And then go ahead, Troy, and then we'll get on the practice.
Yeah. Hey, Troy.
Hey, y'all.
I was gonna ask a couple of different questions if we have time for it. One of them is I'm having some of the difficulty with breathing again,
Hmm, okay.
and just a lot of congestion.
When you say
Yeah.
congestion, you're talking about like mucus, or you're talking about energy congestion?
I think energetic. I haven't really had a mucus issue that I know of.
Clean your Bing Min a whole bunch.
Moving around a whole bunch.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think that actually resolves both. Like it's probably why you're a bit congested, and then it's throwing off circulation a little bit, and it's causing the shortness of breath.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
The other one was I remember you saying something about Cypress for like loose lips and like over talking.
Yes. Yes.
And I feel like occasionally I do that, and I think it's like a result of just like overthinking. And I
Yeah,
was wondering, is there
that's
like
why the Cypress works. Is it helps to like clean up the repetitive thought and like to help regulate the mental body, and so then you stop like talking like that.
so should I be taking that internally or just
You
doing
could
the
do it
pattern?
topically, but I'd find for that internally works so much better. And Cypress you can take for the rest of your life, and you can take big dosages the rest of your life. You know, so like a lot of times when I take Cypress, I take 6-8 drops at a time.
So I can just quit thinking. This whole thinking thing can just be done.
Well, it doesn't, it makes the mind a little bit more regulated. Yeah, it quiets down like a certain aspect, you know, because like our thought processes are divided up into like 4 components, and like the overthinking is like the last phase, the last stage, and so it just helps kind of clean that up a little bit. You know, it doesn't clean up the whole mental process, but it cleans up that last little component quite well, you know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
The cypress can also be inhaled. Like if you're like having a particular thought where you're like, I just cannot get this out of my head. Inhale it as you're thinking it.
okay.
Yeah. You can also do that with like cypress wood or eucalyptus, or you know, there's a few things you can do that with, but cypress works really well for it. Like, so if you're already taking it internal, like I just keep it in your pocket. It's a good tonic oil. It's good for detoxing the body, cleaning up accumulations. It stimulates some of the endocrine glands to help them function properly. And, you know, it does a lot of good things. So,
Okay. New best friend.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. My other question is about I've been really buckling down on my studio practice, my art making practice, and have been really consistent with it the last month. And I think I've asked this before, but just trying to, it's not so much like my focus, like my studio ethic is pretty strong now, and my focus is pretty good. Like I come in after work, and once I get all my stuff done, I'm able to go into it. But it's really important to me in my work to be able to be in that kind of like jazz improvisation type state of mind, like while I'm working, because a lot of the insights of how I should pivot and where I should go with the work, they happen like on the fly, like while I'm working.
Sure.
And I don't always feel like that's happening. Like a lot of times I just feel like I'm just being a worker bee with it, and I'm not necessarily like,
Yeah, you want to be creative, right? You want to be
yeah,
like not just like, oh, but like to like create or be creative or express.
right.
Okay, so a couple of different oils. Actually, and even that thing that I was talking about with Deborah about, you could try that just by itself. But the oils that like can be used for the creative process is one is mugwort and artemisia. Two would be even that blend allostasis, which is like all the things out of that family. And then also osmanthus and saffron. Those will help you embrace that creative process and be able to express it, like call it up and almost like produce something on a dime. You know what I mean? Like, because like you could almost say like the creative process is very similar to problem solving. It's just you're problem solving something very, very abstract sometimes, or problem solving, what we call problem solving is usually a very specific situation. The creative process is just the same idea, but in addressing something that's more abstract, like an idea or an expression, and so, yeah, it helps with all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
if you're going down the saffron route, like inhale it, and like if you don't have anything to do for the rest of the day, put a drop on your hand and then lick it. Like you can you don't want to take too much just because it'll make you really loopy, right? Like put a drop in juice or water, or like on your tongue, and wash it out. And then put a little bit on the ajna, like between the eyebrow, and then let her rip.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, like I'd say 15 minutes after the saffron internal, you won't even be thinking about like anything else. You'll just be in the creative process.
Okay, great. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Really appreciate that. My last one is I sprained my ankle real bad yesterday.
Mhm.
And while I was laying on the ground in the yard, I sprained it on like a root in the yard. And while I was sitting there and I started, I invoked and started doing pH and trying to clean it up. And then I tried to just kind of sit with it as like a lesson,
Right.
like what is
Just calm
this
yourself
about?
down in that moment. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And I think I have something from what it was, but I felt like a resistance to being seen or discovered type of phenomenon about whatever it was about. Is there a way for me to still go into that deeper?
I don't know that it's so much about the details, but it a lot of times something like that is more about the mechanisms and the mechanics. And so I would say even the idea, like you could even go back and just sit and be still and think of like when you rolled your ankle, or like like you said, like not being seen, not being heard, whatever it is, and just sit and contemplate that, and then do the thing where you feel it in your body, like, okay, reflecting on not being seen or heard or whatever it might be. And then as you kind of reflect on it, then go, okay, now where is it in my body? Because a lot of times those things translate into those issues translate into neurological impulses in the body, and being able to sit with it and like just be present with it. It's almost like you unwind it from the body and then you unwind it from the mind. And so, just sit with it, where like when we figure out what the situation is, that's the everyday part of the mind going, okay, what is the problem? And I want to resolve it. when, like what we were talking about before, when you go, okay, I've identified the problem, I'm gonna sit with the problem, both inside me and externally, and I'm gonna bleed it out. I'm just gonna drain it and have it not be a thing anymore. That's actually what you want.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Because even when you try to resolve it, you're still just trying to manage it. You know what I mean? Trust me, I could have tried to turn pro about that, in my younger days. And it just, you change it for a little bit and then something else changes and it's just like, oh, there it is again. There it is again. There it is again. And, I just remember at one point just going, I'm done. I don't understand it and I'm done. Like I like it's not even like wrestling with it anymore. And I remember one day just sitting with something and like, I don't know what to do. I'm beside myself. So I just sat with something. And, it was something that was very upsetting. And then I noticed that just by doing that, all of a sudden I got better. And then I got better. And then I got better. And then I was like, wait a minute. I thought I was just sitting with this. And so I actually asked Master Cho about it. And he said, it's a very deep form of healing. I actually had, when I was young, I used to have migraine symptoms really bad, like from like a little kid. An osteopath said it was probably because of a misalignment in my head, my sphenoid like was torqued, and so I just got it. No matter what I did, I couldn't get rid of them, and it was the same thing where one day I was in just a tremendous amount of pain, like it was like I couldn't even open my eyes, and I just like I'm going to sit with this. I'm going to stop running from it, and I'm just going to sit with it. That was the last migraine I ever had. That was like 30 years ago, 35 years ago. Maybe, oh God, 40 years ago. God, I'm going to be quiet because the number keeps getting bigger. I was like a teenager. Like I didn't know anything about this kind of stuff, but I was just like, I'm just going to relax into it. And yeah. Yeah, it works.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. My last question was, you mentioned recently in maybe a Tuesday night or a class at some point, I think you were saying Anula, but you're talking about like the fire in the belly. Am I remembering that right?
Fire in the belly.
Yeah, you're saying something about just like when you're not feeling that like excitement or like motivation, like just feel kind of burnt out or something. I may be misremembering, but I thought
I don't think it was Anula. I'm trying to think of what I said that about.
I
Do you
remember the
what
phrase
that was?
fire in the belly.
Yeah, fire in the belly. What was that about?
Was it from one of your questions?
It wasn't from one of my questions. I was
Wasn't?
just
Okay.
listening.
Okay.
Yeah. Fire in the belly. Yeah, sometimes when I'm talking about something, I have like a little bit of a stream of consciousness. And then when you ask me,
Right.
wait, what did you mean by that? I was like, what was I talking about? Like, I don't remember. I'll try to remember what that was. I mean, I vaguely kind of remember, but I don't remember what it was we were talking about.
Okay, no worries. Awesome. Thanks so much.
You're
Really
so-
appreciate you.
I want to say it was Ravensara. Right, Ravensara or Naoli.
Naoli. That's what it was.
It's Naoli. I think that's what it was. It was Naoli.
Naoli.
Yeah,
My
because
brain-
it's like it generates like a fire like in you, and fire is associated with like the heart and the lungs, and Naoli is very good for that. But it also is like really invigorating to the body, to the immune system, and just like when you just feel like kind of tired and burned out, both of those are very good. But Naoli can be really reinvigorating, to the body, really reinvigorating. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Good
That's what it was. It was Naoli. Like I remember that now.
I think my brain was just word scrambling
Yeah.
those letters.
Well, Amu was in the realm of that, but it doesn't quite have the invigorating component, but it's still tied to the lungs and the heart. So yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're
Really
so
appreciate
welcome.
it.
And we had another person raise their hand.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead, Peggy.
Hey, Miss Peggy.
You think I would let you go before the end of the year without one question? Sorry, I was late. Okay, so first of all, Happy New Year to y'all.
You
And
too.
secondly, my knee, which was hurting when I walked down the stairs, the first step down, and you said it was mechanical, and to massage.
What was happening? Oh, your knee was buckling, right? It was like wanting
Yeah.
to give up. Yeah.
Felt like it was just walking down the stairs. So I massaged the inside of my my leg there, and it went away. But then now it's come back.
Yeah, you got to keep doing it for a while.
I
It's a
am.
trigger. It's a trigger point. Like it's going to take a little while to unwind it. Just keep treating it repetitively for a bit. Yeah.
Okay, but now my trigger point feels sore. So,
You don't always have to rub it. Like rub it, and then from time to time put probably marjoram. What did I have you put on it? Marjoram or basil? or-
margarine every
Yeah,
time.
just keep putting marjoram on it. You could use black pepper as well. I mean, if it at some point just still doesn't go away, then there's a whole protocol that we have to do to unwind the tendency for trigger points in the body, and that's a little bit more involved. And I mean, we can go down that route, but like at first, let's just try treating it topically like that.
Okay, I'm happy. And again, thank you for a wonderful year. I
Oh,
just
thank you, thank you.
appreciate it.
Happy New Year.
What would be the application for the Nioli or the?
You could take a few drops internally, but also salt bath, lotion. I put several drops on the wrist and rub it together, like you putting it on the back just directly. Chest, abdomen, neat application. I mean, you can kind of go crazy with it. And so yeah, kind of anything goes, like internal, topical, salt bath. Get a lot on your skin or a lot inhaled though, or ingest. Like if you ingest, like maybe 2 or 3 drops internally. And so the practice that I was going to do tonight, I know we only have a few minutes before we got to jump to the Astara thing, but the thing that I was going to have you do, it was actually just going to be something very simple. And I was going to have you use hyssop, any form of hyssop. It's hard to use something else. If you don't have that, something else that's good for respiratory and cleansing, like maybe one of the firs or spruces, but hyssop would be the go-to first choice. Even frankincense maybe, but basically you're just going to inhale it and just keep exploring the different aspects of your spine. Just keep going, like your neck, your back, your mid back, your low back, and wherever you feel like there's something stuck, spend a little extra time. And I would say either lay down or really kind of almost like slouch in a chair, because as you unwind, it's going to take some tension out of your body, and keep allowing that deeper release from the spine to happen. When the spine is outside to side, it actually compromises lymphatic function, like it compromises your immune system. If the vertebrae slides forward, it actually causes an autoimmune response. And so your spine directly corresponds to your immunity. And so keeping that all unwound helps you to stay healthier with your immune responses. So, okay, you guys. Well, and we have unexpected travel, so we are having to cancel tomorrow night because we're going to be still in the car driving. And so, my apologies, but we'll try to do like a little makeup thing at some point. But we got to jump over to Astara, and Happy New Year, you guys. Love you guys, and we'll talk again soon. Join us with the star thing if you'd like.